And welcome into the second annual Pretend GMMY Awards. We're going for quantity over quality this episode. You've got myself, Alfredo Brown, Dave Kluge, and Dr. Vignesh Doraiswamy. That's right, all three of us in the virtual building, I guess, for tonight's award show. Vig, I said this last year. I'm going to say it again. It is a magical night to be handing out awards to some of fantasy football's best and worst and most agitating players. If it's your first time listening, I have to warn you, like, we're not going to have any real analysis. It's just a lot of shenanigans. It's honestly, guys, I want to show everyone how very unserious this show is. Can we do like a quick pants check?
No.
Pants check. Are you guys, because we're in our tuxedos. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got pants check. Let's go. Everyone.
As you
3,
can see,
2,
there
1,
are none.
up. Oh my, Dave, though, that's just a lot of skin.
As you
man.
all know, I came
There
from
we go.
work. I'm in scrubs.
There we go. I'm just wearing house pants.
Here.
Wait, I'm sorry, Dave. Did you say you're rocking jorts?
Shorts.
Oh,
Shorts,
okay.
yes.
I was so worried. Well, welcome. We have started out on fire. Pants check and everything. So we have got 15 different awards that we are going to be giving out tonight or today or this morning, whenever you're listening or watching to this show. We're recording this at night. And we're going to start this out with the biggest position in all of football, the best fantasy quarterback. Without any further ado, let's get started with the nominees. The nominees for best fantasy quarterback: Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles; Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears; and Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Now, you guys were giving me a lot of crap before this because we each put in a nominee here, and you guys were not happy.
Yeah, I'll give you a peek behind the curtain here. So we put together these nominations, and Alfredo says, all right, why don't you add your nominations for each of these categories? He sends us the nominations after he already added all of his. So Dr. Vig and I, we were just here picking up the scraps. So yeah, best quarterback. I think we all know who the best quarterback was this year. You nominated him first before we got a chance to. I think we all would have been in agreement on this one if we each had a chance to nominate somebody.
Yeah, it was really annoying because I'm adding in my nominations 18 hours later, and then I'm like trying to be creative. Obviously, I was a Josh
That's
Allen
your
guy.
fault.
And I was like, I don't know, what do I do?
Busy?
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Well, I didn't even get a heads up. All of a sudden, there's like a, here you go, put it in. So anyway, yeah, Jalen Hurts won, obviously, but I'm not upset about it. I'm upset about you, Alfredo.
First of all, you stole my thunder. I'm supposed to announce who wins. With 72% of the vote, it's Jalen Hurts. Look, Vic, this year I even invested in envelopes, okay? I was ready. We made big moves, big strides with the Pretend GMMYs, and you steal that away from me. So yes, Jalen Hurts.
Let me ask, did you invest in envelopes, or do you have one that you're just using as a prop over and over and over again?
Sir, this is an envelope. This is a piece of mail that I have received that is unopened because I hate opening mail, and I think that mail is stupid, so I just leave closed envelopes lying around. So, congratulations to Jalen Hurts. 72% of the vote. Guys, Jalen Hurts was just phenomenal. He was the quarterback one in a points per game basis, nearly 27 points per game, 8 weeks as the overall fantasy QB 3 or better. This was just, I know that a lot of people had high hopes for him, and it was just supposed to be like this big year, but I don't even think that the people who had high hopes really thought that he'd be this good and this much better than everyone else and be the QB1. Dave, this makes me ask the question, is a dual threat quarterback an absolute must draft in fantasy now?
Yeah, I think there's two things that you want if you're drafting a quarterback. You want somebody who's going to be a dual threat quarterback, or you want somebody that's going to have insane volume. Because like we saw with Joe Burrow this year, and like we saw with Tom Brady 2 years ago, if you're passing for 650 to 750 pass attempts, you can still crack into that elite tier of fantasy quarterbacks. But it's really tough to project that type of volume onto anybody. And we saw it with Joe Burrow this year and Tom Brady the year before. But I think the safest bet is just to go out and draft somebody who's got legs, because it gives you such a high floor and such a high ceiling, like we saw with Justin Fields this year, and like we will probably see with Trey Lance next year. These are the guys that you want on your fantasy teams.
Now, Vig, I know you're not a, quote, fantasy expert / analyst, whatever it is. You do a much less important job. You're, what is it again? You're like a lifeguard or a camp counselor or something. What is it? Substitute teacher?
I am indeed actually a physician in real life.
Physician. That's just a fancy way of saying doctor. You're a doctor, dude.
I told you, we got to use the big Latin words or Greek words to sound
Physician's
smarter than
not
everybody
Latin.
else.
It's not Greek either.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm not getting a nose job. I'm getting a septology.
Oh, a septology.
That was like the study of a septum, probably septoplasty, right?
Septoplasty. There it is.
We are
Close
off
enough.
to an
And this is why
awesome
you're the
start.
doctor, Vig.
We're off to an awesome start, Vig. So my question for you about Jalen Hurts. Is he like automatically the QB1 next year just because of how well he finished this year? Not much should be changing in that offense. If anything, they may get even more pass happy if a guy like Miles Sanders moves on. So is he just kind of like no questions asked QB1?
I got to go with what Dave said pretty much. Some things are really hard to project, and I can't project passing volume for a lot of quarterbacks. But with Jalen Hurts, you get that really, really safe floor, and that safe floor is already like a top quarterback just from his rushing ability, and we know he's going to make at least some passes. But if he even improves on that or even stays the same, people love to talk about negative, positive regression, all that stuff. It's just, I think Jalen Hurts, given his age, his team, his situation, stays my QB1. You and I are in a few dynasty leagues where I already have him, and like Jalen Hurts took me to the championship even though I had like 7 players on my IR. I just can't imagine anyone else, barring any crazy injuries, being my QB1 next year.
So hold on, can we settle a debate really quickly? Because Dave and Vig, you guys are both really smart. Vig, you muttered a phrase there, negative and positive regression. Is there actually such a thing, or is it just regression? And it just goes in a direction, like regression to the mean. That's all it is, right? Can we make that official?
Yeah, I was trying to make fun of some of us who like to use all these words, but yes, I agree. Regression is always a tendency to go back towards average.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, like, we set that in stone right here. The Pretend GMMYs is a big magical night. Like, we're able to do a lot of things and cast a lot of things in stone, and I'm glad that we set that up. Let's move on to our next category, and it's going to be basically everyone's favorite fantasy football position until they get hurt, unless you're a 0 RB person, but it's the best fantasy running back, and we've got, once again, 3 nominees for this award. First nominee is Josh Jacobs, Jingleheimer Schmidt of the Las Vegas Raiders. Austin Eckler, who, man, like such a big advocate in the fantasy football community. It's really cool to see an NFL player just kind of accept what fantasy football is and understand what the fans love about it. And then thirdly, we've got Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. You know, Vig, I'm going to make you do it. Vig, can you give me like a little drum roll here? That's now your punishment. You have to be the drum roll guy because you stole my thunder for the first one.
I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm rolling.
I can hear it. I can hear it. That's
excellent.
excellent.
Like a pin, like one of those steel drums from Jamaica. That's nice.
And the winner of the best fantasy running back is Josh Jacobs, Las Vegas Raiders, with 50% of the vote. And guys, I think it's pretty easy to see why. He was the running back 1 in non-PPR scoring formats, the running back 3 overall in points per game for half and full PPR, and on the season. He didn't really miss any time. He had 5 games as the running back 3 overall or better in half PPR formats. Dave, Josh Jacobs was awesome this year, but I think a lot of people are going to be wondering this as we go into our drafts next year. Is he a one-year wonder, one-hit wonder?
You know, it's so tough to speculate right now. Josh Jacobs, obviously a free agent, but in addition,
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
In addition to him being a free agent, though, we're looking at Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Alexander Madison, Damian Harris. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I haven't even talked about the running backs that are coming in through the draft, Bijan Robinson and these other guys. So there is going to be such a surplus of talented running backs on the market this year. Josh Jacobs is fantastic. I mean, he's an unbelievable athlete. He's great at what he does, but it's so hard to speculate on what he's going to do next year because what happens if he lands on a team like Miami? Then, of course, then he's probably getting drafted in the first round. What if he goes to a team like San Francisco and he's splitting carries with Christian McCaffrey? Unlikely, but possible, where you can get 2 guys nuked at once. So there's just so much movement that's going to be happening this offseason that it's impossible to speculate at this time.
Is it possible, Dave, you're a Bears fan, is it possible that somehow the Chicago Bears throw all of that money that they have at Josh Jacobs to come in and replace David Montgomery?
No, they've been singing David Montgomery's praises, and I don't think he's going anywhere this offseason. Okay,
so that's some good news. And all right, so Josh Jacobs, Vig, do you think he stays in Vegas? If not, what do you think could be a potential landing spot for him?
I mean, I think Dave already mentioned a couple of really good ones, and it's really hard to say what happens with Josh Jacobs and where he goes. He played big in this sort of contract kind of year. He's a free agent. He's going to want to get paid, and I think he demonstrated that he could be very valuable. Now, depending on what the Raiders do, right? They had an abysmal year. I think they're happy to keep him, but I don't even know if he can produce the same if the Raiders get better. A lot of it was his situation too. So, I mean, I know I'm supposed to give you a yes or no answer, and I just think that it's so hard to speculate.
It was actually a destination answer.
Yeah, well, no. The question was, do you think he stays in Vegas? So there was no destination.
Oh, you're right. No, I stand corrected. That's why you're a doctor, and so, I'm not wearing pants.
If I had to put a bet on it, I'd say he probably stays. But it is just so hard to speculate with so much available places for people to go as far as running backs are concerned this upcoming year that I don't even want to speculate. I'll just hold on to him for now and see what to do.
And even if he does stay in Las Vegas, who knows what that team's going to look like next year? Yeah. Derek Carr is probably gone. Devontae Adams might be forcing a trade. I mean, who knows what this team could possibly look like? I mean, at this point in the season, it's just so hard to speculate on 2023, especially with all of these running backs about to get shaken up.
Yeah, I think we're more likely to see Josh Jacobs stick around in Las Vegas just because of whatever shakeups do happen. They're going to need somebody to lean on. They're going to need some sort of identity. And, man, whatever they can control right now in Las Vegas, I think Josh Jacobs might be their guy. Gentlemen, let's move on to some more magic here on this magical night of the 2022 Pretend GME Awards. And we're going to be moving on to the best fantasy wide receiver. And you know what? Finally, here we go. One award where my nominee did not win, and you guys can stop your crying. So let's start with the nominees. Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins. Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. And Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders. Vig, drum roll, please. Oh, I like the way that it's getting faster and faster and faster. The winner for best fantasy wide receiver is Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings with 62% of the vote, and I don't think it was ever really in doubt. As good as Tyreek Hill was, and he was my nominee, and a bit of a homer in that sense, but these guys both put up incredible seasons. Justin Jefferson, I mean, even in a down year for Dalvin Cook, so to speak, and just there wasn't really much else on that offense. Dave, did you roster Justin Jefferson anywhere?
Yes, I rostered him absolutely everywhere. He was my wide receiver one this offseason. Don't get me wrong, I love Cooper Kupp, but just looking at the age, that was the tiebreaker for me. Justin Jefferson is on the upswing of his career, while Cooper Kupp, coming on 30 years old, he's on the downslope and didn't project an injury by any means. And I do want to point out that Cooper Kupp actually outscored Justin Jefferson in a per-game basis. So had he stayed healthy, had Matthew Stafford been healthy, we could have a completely different discussion here. But Justin Jefferson in that Kevin O'Connell offense, taking on the Cooper Kupp role with a young and talented quarterback, I mean, he just looked fantastic this year. I've got him pegged right now as the 101 in next year's drafts. We know he's not going anywhere. Wow. This guy gave us a solid floor and a sky-high ceiling every single week. Absolutely love Justin Jefferson.
Now, Vig, we saw that Justin Jefferson didn't have the best week. I think he had his absolute worst performance of his career in the fantasy championship week here for fantasy owners. So as someone that plays a lot of fantasy football, is that something that you think about when you go back in the next year? Do you hold those grudges on guys when they kind of let you down like this, Vig?
I mean, absolutely not, right? Like, I'm not in the championship without Justin Jefferson for the most part if I'm rostering him. And here's what I am going to do. I hold that grudge in the sense that I am looking for someone who's thinking about it as a grudge, because there is no discount to be had on Justin Jefferson. But if someone is stupid enough to give me a discount because they lost their championship, I am jumping on that instantly. My question to Dave was initially going to be, is this the year that everyone's pretty much consensus 101 as a wide receiver, and is it Justin Jefferson? And I love that you already answered it for me, because I just don't see who else it could be. I feel like he's got to be the 101. You get a stupid high floor, a crazy high ceiling, and if there's a grudge that someone has, please have that grudge, and please give me Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to see a lot of receivers with, Vig, as you so eloquently put it, stupid high floors and crazy high ceilings. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson. I think next year could become the year of the wide receiver, where we're not looking at as many running backs going as early in fantasy drafts. And I think this is a big year for zero RB drafters. All right, gents, let's move on to our next category here, and it is the best fantasy tight end. My nominee, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dave, your nominee, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. And Vig, your nominee, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. Vig, drum roll, please.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, get it together. You have a medical degree. Keep it going. Move those fingers. I don't care if you get a carpal tunnel. And the winner for best fantasy tight end is Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs with 81% of the vote. And honestly, I don't think it was ever really in doubt. Even I picked Evan Ingram because of just where he was drafted and what he was able to do and kind of some of the crazy games he was able to offer you based on the draft value. But I don't think, Dave, this is kind of crazy. Travis Kelce, at his age, he's just not slowing down. I think a lot of people were worried about him hitting that age cliff. Do you think that happens again? Like, do we have the same stupid conversation next year about Travis Kelce?
I mean, I think you just got to keep riding him while he's producing. I mean, I was one of the guys this offseason that pointed out that nobody at his age has ever recorded 1,000 or more yards at the tight end position. And Travis Kelce went on to have one of his best years ever. So I think it would be crazy to not draft him as the tight end one at this point. It's kind of like Derrick Henry. We've been predicting his downfall for 3 years and he just keeps producing. Travis Kelce is kind of the same way. I'm just going to keep buying until we finally see that down year and then I'll stop drafting him. But from now going on into the immediate future, he deserves to be a first round pick.
Vig, you put TJ Hawkinson here, and I think what's so interesting is
scraps. All right, we got the two guys.
Hold on.
Vig was
what are you talking about? I put Evan Ingram. You're the one that put Travis Kelce. I'm just saying.
Again, I got the scraps.
Okay, what? Well, that's kind of my question here, right? Is that Travis Kelce on a points per game basis, he had the biggest differential from the next player at his position. So from tight end number 1 overall to tight end 2, that was the biggest discrepancy in points, Travis Kelce and the next guy. So that makes me ask, right? If you're looking at the tight end position, I know people have kind of started this whole strategy of like great or late, where you want to draft either super early and get Kelce or Mark Andrews or whomever, or just wait a really long time. Have we kind of hit the point where it's just like, hey, you're at such a crazy advantage by having Travis Kelce on your team that that's what you need to be trying to do?
I mean, I feel like we've been at that point, right? Like, how often do we ask this question? This question's been asked every year, I feel like, for the last 3 years. And every year we draft Travis Kelce, like, earlier and earlier. I mean, the guy, like, in best ball drafts, right? He goes so early in the first round. I saw him go 102, 103. And I really do think he's truly in a league of his own, and he just seems immune to everything, right? Like, Waller's had good years and bad years, and Kittle's had good years and bad years, and Hawkins, we project all these breakouts every single year, but it's still just Travis Kelce. And like, we know Kyle Pitts, for example, we're not talking about him a lot today, but the guy's got all this potential. But again, like, if I have an option, do I take that risk? I don't think I do. I don't think I go the Kyle Pitts or Hawkinson or Ingram. I think I go Kelce all over again. And like Dave said, just ride the Kelce wave as long as I can.
All right, let's get to our next category here. This is the reason that we bring Dr. Vig onto the show, and it is the R.I.C.E Award for the toughest injury to have dealt with. And R.I.C.E, Vig, what was your job again? You're like shampoo boy, or what is it that you do?
I take care of hospitalized kids and adults.
Okay, all right. So you know what R.I.C.E stands for, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say any of us who have watched sports or played sports, but rest, ice, compress, elevate. Is that what you were going for? I never know with you because you make up acronyms for no reason.
I do. I'm big on acronyms and just not telling anyone anything. That's what happens when you get your name on the show. Like, you just kind of just do stupid things and then you ask for forgiveness later. It doesn't matter. That's why I was able to put in all the nominees. So for the R.I.C.E Award of the toughest injury to overcome, we've got our 3 nominees. Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams, Breece Hall of the New York Jets, and Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. Vig, break out the drumsticks. There it is. Oh, that's good volume. And the winner of the R.I.C.E Award for the toughest injury to overcome is Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams with 47% of the vote. This was a close one. It was really close. Jonathan Taylor was not far behind. Guys, man, so we kind of touched on this a little bit. Cooper Kupp versus Justin Jefferson next year. Cooper Kupp, if there is, Dave, and I'll ask you this question, if Cooper Kupp does not have Matthew Stafford, I'm not even going to ask if you're taking him in the top 5. Are you able to take him in the first round if Matthew Stafford's not there? Let's say it's Cooper Kupp and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's probably around the 2-3 turn. I mean, coming off an injury at 30 years old. I love Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's a great player, but we didn't see him hit that superstar status until Matthew Stafford started feeding him 35-40% of the team's targets. So I really like Cooper Kupp, but given his age, given the injury, there's a lot of guys that I would prefer at that spot.
Now, Vig, we always talk about injuries and whether or not they should affect players' value going forward. And we did this a lot when we were talking primarily dynasty. But, a guy like Cooper Kupp, who's a little bit older, versus some younger running backs like Brees Hall, Jonathan Taylor. And there's obviously some different factors, right? Like they play different positions. They're more likely to get hit and injured. And these three players, Cooper Kupp, Brees Hall, Jonathan Taylor, was there anything here from any of them that you're just like, yeesh, yeah, I'd be avoiding them next year? Or are all three of these guys pretty much like, hey, they're going to be good to go, and if you can take that injury discount, I would?
This is really, really tough to say. I think what we found is that the majority of running backs who are successful in fantasy and have an ACL injury and then come back struggle a little bit early on. And by early on, I mean potentially as long as the entire first season. FB Injury Doc on Twitter at Paras talks about this a little bit too. And like folks have looked at the data where after an ACL injury, very few running backs come back that very next year and perform at the same level. Let's talk about Saquon, right? Last year, Saquon was struggling after a lot of injuries. I shouldn't say struggling, but he didn't perform at the level we expected. But this year, it almost seemed like he was a different guy, and that just sort of seems to be the norm. And it doesn't matter what the age is. I think obviously the older you are, the more worried you are about these sort of things. So overall, I'm not like particularly worried about Brees Hall or Jonathan Taylor from an injury standpoint. I expect them to be like somewhere between 85 and 90+% of where they were. But you do lose some of that explosiveness. You do lose some of what makes you really, really good for a running back. So it is hard to say. And, there's plenty of time to kind of see what they say as far as injury reports and recovery and where they're at. Don't listen to the players. The players are always ahead of their timeline. But
J.K. Dobbins.
Every single person, right? J.K. Dobbins is going to limp out there and tell people that's not a limp. I'm like, come on, dude. We weren't born yesterday. But I think this is a hard question to answer. And I think the good news is we have time to wait and see how these guys recover. They're all determined. They all want to play.
So I'm going to further this question. If you're in Dynasty, right, and then you kind of don't have time, like that season's always going, you can always make trades. Are you looking to are you trading low on these guys? Are you buying low? Or you just want to stay in a holding pattern, it sounds like?
Well, I think right now I'd stay in a holding pattern unless someone is going to offer me, incredible value in terms of like first round picks and then some, because I just don't know what's going to happen, right? I think how often do we have XYZ idea and then a single offseason move ruins all of it, right? Like, Let's just Josh Jacobs. Who knows? Maybe the Jets just go crazy. Like, we want Josh Jacobs. And then what do I make of my Brees Hall trade that I did like a week before that? So I like to wait till things settle a little bit at least. That's just me. Unless I get a really crazy discount, which I can sometimes. I like to stay the course, but that's just my style of playing. But can I say something here? How in the world did Jonathan Taylor not win? Is the audience wrong, Dave? I want your opinion here because I don't care about Alfredo. Is the audience wrong?
It's fair.
Jonathan Taylor was drafted as like the 101 or 102 in so many drafts. How is that not the toughest injury? You got that guy to win a championship.
Yeah, I think it's tough because he did come back too, and even when he played, he wasn't fully at himself, which made it even tougher to stomach. But I think Cooper Kupp, I mean, like I said, he was the per game wide receiver one when he got hurt. It was literally impossible to make up that production in any way. And I had Cooper Kupp in a lot of leagues, and trying to plug in the Christian Watsons and the Zay Joneses, it feels like you just got it wrong every single week. So I mean, Jonathan Taylor, it's a little bit different because you get these guys that pop up. I mean, shoot, if you had Jonathan Taylor, you could have picked up Zach Moss and gotten good production down the stretch in the final. So I think that running backs are a little bit easier to replace than wide receivers, and I think that's why Kupp won it.
Yeah, Dave, I have to agree with you entirely because I don't think that there was a next man up mentality for the Rams where you're able to say like, okay, I've lost Cooper Kupp.
He's going to give me 25 points a game.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're just not giving you 25 points a game.
You've just made my point, gentlemen. All right, let's get on to our next award here. And it seems like every week in fantasy football, there is that one player that is either sitting out on the waiver wire or sitting on your bench that just magically goes off for a career game or just absolutely huge performance. And the That Helped Nobody award for most likely to have a big game on your bench. We have 3 nominees. My nominee was Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Dave, you nominated Zay Jones, who you just mentioned recently, of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we're going for a twofer here in the city of Jacksonville. Vig nominated Evan Ingram, tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vig, drum it up. Oh, come on. Give me more. Yes, there it is. Oh, I like it. That's aggression. There we go. The That Helped Nobody Award is presented to Zay Jones of the Jacksonville Jaguars with a surprising 46% of the vote. I'm shocked. I nominated Taysom Hill because who is actually starting him? I don't know. But Dave, oh, shut up. Put your hand down. Dave, you put Zay Jones here. How did that shake out for you, having him on your roster? And it just kind of felt like every week you're like, all right, I trust him now. Boom. 1 catch on 5 targets for 3 points. And then next week you're like, no, I can't trust Zay Jones. Boom. 36 PPR points. How frustrating was that for you as a Zay Jones fantasy manager?
Yeah, and I'm a huge Zay Jones fan as well. Alfredo, during the season, it seemed like every single time we did a show together, you and I, one of the two of us was hyping up Zay Jones.
I think it was for like 5 straight weeks, Dave. We talked about Zay Jones.
Right. And I mean, great player, but his inconsistency was impossible to predict and came at the worst possible time. So let me just walk you through kind of what he did here. First game before the bye, week 10, he put up 14.8 points. So at that point, you're feeling pretty good. After the bye, you might want to bench him, but if you did start him, congratulations, you got 27.5 points. So at that point, he's coming off back-to-back huge performances. You plug him into your lineup, and what does he get you? 3.6. So then you bench him. And then the next week, what does he do? 21.7. But you're saying, nah, I'm not feeling too great about it. He puts up 35 points the next week. And then at this point, you are in the semifinals of your fantasy football matchup. You say, I have to start Zay Jones. He has been red hot for 4 of the last 5 weeks. 2.1 points, 5.4 points to finish out the season. I mean, he just completely ruined so many people's fantasy playoff pushes this year.
Vig, you are our resident Jaguars fan. We've got 2 Jaguars on here. The That Helped Nobody Award. How does this make you feel as a Jaguars? Like, do you actually have faith in these gentlemen going forward? I believe Evan Ingram's going to be a free agent. So let's ask that. Do you think Evan Ingram comes back to the Jags?
I think so. I think it's got to be a no-brainer. They're going to pay him. He got 9.9 mil this year. He did so well. He's got a great connection, and he knows what. And this, sorry, any Giants fan out, this is not like a big Danny Dimes attack, but like the difference with Evan Ingram having an excellent quarterback showed us what he's capable of, which he showed us back in like his rookie year. So I cannot see the Jags letting go of this guy. As a fan, I don't even care, dude. Like, we've talked about this. Fantasy football is fantasy, but when you have an abysmal team that never does well, and they're doing well in real life, you don't care about fantasy as much. So I don't care what happens. Zay Jones going off, not Evan Ingram. I was so excited to see him and Ingram and Kirk and ETN have great weeks. Though as a fantasy manager for some of these guys, you were right. It was so difficult to like project and predict who was going to be covering Zay Jones and like what the team was going to do. And like people tried, but like even the ones who predict really, really well struggle to predict what to make of Zay Jones. So, I mean, as a Jags fan, super happy. As a fantasy manager, I am still unclear as to what might happen with this squad next year. But all I know is that Trevor Lawrence is looking much better, and he is finding ways to distribute and get the ball around to all of his weapons.
Yeah, and if anything, I think that uncertainty and unpredictability is just a testament to Trevor Lawrence, because you see so many times with young quarterbacks where they just fixate on their main guy. I mean, we saw it with Josh Allen early in his career with Stephon Diggs, and we saw it even to, an extent with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown last year. But Trevor Lawrence is willing to use everybody on the field. He had one game where it started off his first 8 pass attempts went to 8 different receivers. I mean, this guy was dealing to whoever was open. So as a Jags fan, you got to love seeing that. And as a fantasy manager, it was frustrating. But Trevor Lawrence, whether it was Jamal Agnew or Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram, it didn't matter. He was hitting the open receiver, and he did it all season long.
Yeah, that Jaguars team is going to be, they're going to have a lot of firepower. As long as Trevor Lawrence continues to progress over this offseason, I think Doug Peterson was such a revelation for them, the offense that he was able to install there. And guys, let's not forget, they're adding Calvin Ridley next year. That could open up things even more. So Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, if they can bring Evan Ingram back, and then who knows who else they might add in this offseason or even in the draft. So Jaguars, Vig, congrats, man. Your team is looking a little dangerous. That should be a lot of fun.
Finally. Oh, dude, I'm so excited.
All right, let's move on to our next award here. And you know what? I want to take this time to do a little quiz. And I'm going to pick. Who do I think? All right, Vig, I'm going to ask you if you know the reference from this award, the Gray's Sports Almanac Award for the best bet to break out in 2023.
I have zero idea.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. Dave, your hand is raised. Please tell the class, what is the Gray's Sports Almanac?
Back to the Future 2, I believe, right? Is that what that's from?
Sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Thank you very much.
Could it be what Biff Tannen was using? I thought about it for a second. I didn't want to sound too stupid, and now I sound extra stupid.
Vig, you got to shoot your shot, man. If you're not sure, you got to shoot your shot.
I was like 80% certain.
I was like fairly confident it was the one they were using to like become billionaires in the future, but oh well, I should have just shot.
Guys, I tried to watch Back to the Future with an 11-year-old yesterday. It did not take. Not at all. I think it still ages well. I mean, despite all the effects and whatnot,
they might not have been ready for it yet, but their parents are going to love it.
Wow, Dave off the top rope. Let's just end the show right here. Dave, that was perfect. If there's a moment in this show that we have to cut and highlight and promote this episode, it is that right there. Dave Kluge from Half Court. Yes. Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get to the Gray's Sports Almanac Award for the best bet to break out in 2023. Here are the nominees. Jamison Williams, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Bijan Robinson, because Dave doesn't care about rules, so he picks a rookie running back that's not even in the NFL. I mean, I'm going to allow it because Dave just had the best reference that we've had on this show at any given time, despite who was on. So I'm going to allow it this time. And Vig, being the ultimate homer, has selected Calvin Ridley of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we polled the voters on Twitter. Vig, give me the drum roll. And the winner of the Gray's Sports Almanac Award for Best Bet to Break Out in 2023 is Jamison Williams, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And man, I got to say, I know that I'm the guy that's in love with Jamison Williams and what he was doing in Alabama. And just, I don't think anyone can argue, each time that he has been on the field and been able to actually see a target, it's looked good. His first NFL reception was a touchdown. And then he had another touchdown last week against Green Bay that gets called back on a penalty. He's taking jet sweeps for 40 yards or a reverse or whatever it was. It's just a rush attempt. But this guy is incredibly explosive. And I'm going to say it here first. Like, he is one of my major sleepers. I think he's going to be a lot of people's sleeper next year because it's kind of an easy one. But man, in Dynasty, if you've got someone that just maybe wants to move on from Jamison Williams, I think now is the time to go and buy or, start to move around some of those draft picks when you get closer to your rookie draft. Dave, you put Bijan Robinson
it's not
here.
Even fair.
And it's not. And and Bijan Robinson almost won. And so let's have a really simple dynasty football question here. Bijan Robinson, just clear cut 101 overall in your rookie drafts, regardless of format.
Yeah, regardless of format, and I'd even say regardless of landing spot. I mean, he can land just about anywhere, and I think that he's going to be just fine. I got to say, though, that Bijan nomination by me, that was me kind of biting my thumb at you for taking Jamison Williams, who I think we all knew was going to be next year's breakout player.
Yeah, Dave, going from a really cool Back to the Future reference to biting my thumb at you. That sounds like the most old man. That sounds like the most old man.
You bite your thumb at us, sir. No?
Oh, my God.
So I guess a little known fact that we're just going to throw out there, Dave, I'm so sorry. It's like Dave is a Latin scholar that we don't talk about this enough. Like, I mean, Shakespearean references and the like are exactly what I expect from you henceforth. And I like want you to say,
what are we doing?
I want you to say words like henceforth. But yes, Dave studied Latin. Alfredo, you were like are you by far the least intelligent
I'm
person
definitely the dumbest person on the podcast at this point. It is decided I am the biggest idiot on the podcast. I definitely have the lowest. Like, can we take the Wonderlic test at some point this offseason, please?
Oh,
like,
that would be great. That'd be hilarious.
I got a 34 on it.
Yo, you've already done it? Okay, no, we have to do this again. We have to do this again.
Do it. We'll do a live Wonderlic where we're all streaming live so we know nobody can cheat.
Yeah, because that's what people want, is to watch us take a test
look at the
for
top
like
of our
an
heads.
hour. No, just what? So we can prove I'm the dumbest one? No, thank you. All right, let's move on to our next. Actually, before we get to our next award, we actually have a giveaway. This is the giveaway we've been talking about for the last over a month, and it is our full-sized NFL football autographed by Javonte Williams, and we have a winner, Vig. And and Dave, can we get some finger drums going? Oh, wow,
really
we're going.
Good.
Yeah,
Dave's
Dave, you're so much better at the
yours is
drums.
better. You got to do this, man.
Well, we already talked about my Latin scholar. I was also a drummer. So you were picking the gumball guy from the drum roll.
Dave
my
is
God.
so much
Good
more
job.
inclined to be good at things than I am right now. I'm just gonna let him do everything. You want to host the show, like please?
No, I don't have a lot of experience with hosting award shows, so that one is fully on you.
All right, our giveaway winner for the full-sized NFL football autograph by Javonte Williams is Paul Winterhalter. Thank you, Paul, for being a fan of the show, for leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We will be getting that Javonte Williams autographed football out to you very, very soon. Thank you so much for everyone that participated in that. Now let's continue on with the shenanigans. I honestly feel like we've been doing a little too much analysis. We finally got to do some stupid stuff in that last award. This award has had me just singing, and it's been stuck in my head for the last couple days, and this is the RickRoll Never Gonna Give You Up award in honor of, honestly, one of the greatest musicians of our time, Rick Astley. This is for the most disappointing player that we just simply cannot give up on. And the nominees are DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions, Michael Pittman, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, and Alvin Kamara, running back for the New Orleans Saints. I'm making a switch. Dave, give me the drums. Oh, it's so good. And the winner of the RickRoll Never Gonna Give You Up award, DeAndre Swift, running back for the Detroit Lions, with 50% of the vote. Gents, you guys had some really good nominees here too. For all three of you, would all of you guys have picked DeAndre Swift in this case?
Yes.
Okay, well,
I read that and I said DeAndre Swift, obviously, and then I looked down and I said, of course Alfredo already picked him, and then I just picked the next name that came to my mind. We knew DeAndre Swift was running away with a landslide on this one.
Is he not? So just totally analytical question. Is he not the coolest player that you want him to do well? Like, he's got a cool number. He plays for the Lions that everyone loves. He's got like the perfect running back name, DeAndre Swift, and you're just hoping and praying that he's gonna give you the production that you wanted. Now, DeAndre Swift, Dave, I'll throw this to you first. Jamal Williams, I believe, is up for free agency this year. What's the shot that Jamal Williams cashes in on this free agency after having such a great year, breaking Barry Sanders' touchdown record for the Lions? He may be able to go somewhere. It just doesn't seem like the Lions really want to give DeAndre Swift a full workload. So what are your thoughts there?
And that's my fear, is that even if Jamal Williams does walk, they're just going to replace him with another version of Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams had a great year, but he's not an especially great football player, dare I say it, after coming off a great season. It feels disrespectful to say that.
Man.
But I mean, he doesn't do anything great except run between the tackles and at the goal line. And that's what he did. And I mean, it's not like he was ripping off big chunk plays all season or making defenders miss. He was just following his blockers at the 1 yard line and stumbling into the end zone seemingly every single week. And I think that that's a skill set that can be replicated by a lot of other running backs. For whatever reason, they just don't want to give DeAndre Swift that short yardage and goal line work. I don't think that's going to change. And that's kind of frustrating because I love DeAndre Swift, but I don't think we're ever going to see him in a 20-touch role like we see Austin Eckler and some of these other guys. He has the skill set to do it, but I think that given his injury history, the coaches just want to try to keep it a little light on him.
Yeah, it seemed like all throughout Hard Knocks and throughout the season, Deuce Staley just not a big fan of DeAndre Swift, not like the fantasy community. Vig, this is the guy that we've seen him have injury issues in the past. He's had to split work, and the Lions are now going to be getting Jameson Williams into next year. And who knows what direction they end up going at the quarterback position. Do they want to draft a guy to develop behind Goff, who had just one of the best seasons of his career? So DeAndre Swift, for the longest time here, has really just been cemented in as a top 12 running back. For you, is he going to be a top 12 running back going into next year? Are you willing to draft him in, let's say, the first 3 rounds of your fantasy draft?
I mean, like Dave said, the guy's got the skill set to do everything we'd want from someone that we draft there. And I think when it's hard to project these sort of things, you kind of go with the skill. And it is hard to, again, no one wants to give up on him. And I think I'm in that community as well. I would have voted for DeAndre Swift. Though I will say, Jamal Williams is one of my favorite people in the NFL, man. He's out there correcting people for mispronouncing Pokemon. And he's out there saying, I just want to go home and watch some anime. Jamal Williams is a great, fun human. So when you're talking about favorite running backs, kind of almost want to say I like Jamal more than Swift. But going back to this Swift question, I think I do. Maybe he's one of those later end people I'm hoping to snag. a little bit closer towards the end of those 3 rounds if he even lasts. But I think I have to. The skill is there. His ability to as a half PPR and PPR machine is still there. I'm not worried about injuries as much, to be honest with you. Some of these are just freak issues with this guy. But DeAndre Swift is still, I think, the potential for a pretty darn safe floor. And again, he could be one of those crazy high ceilings. You never know.
My fear is that they bring in somebody that nobody's especially excited about. They're going to bring in a Jeff Wilson or an Alexander Madison, and everyone's going to say, all right, it's finally time. It's DeAndre Swift season. And then DeAndre Swift still sees 10 touches a game, and Alexander Madison, Jeff Wilson Jr., Raheem Mostert, whoever it is, maintains all of the goal line work. That's kind of the worst case scenario, but I don't think that we're just going to be able to get Swift for cheap all of a sudden next year.
Are we going to, dare I say, get Swift rolled? Huh?
That was horrendous.
Boom, pow! Let's move on to our next award here. It is the Undertaker GIF. Vig.
GIF.
I've heard it both ways. Let's settle that here. No, we're settling things here.
Okay.
From what I read on the Google machine, and the internet's never wrong, is that it is GIF, like a gift.
The creator said GIF. And so he named it.
Were you reading that and you mispronounced it as you read it?
No.
He said
the creator
GIF like
said
peanut
GIF.
butter.
Mm-hmm. The guy who created, but it stands for like graphics interchange format. So you could make an argument that G is a hard G, and you could say GIF. I honestly don't care. I like GIF because I like peanut butter. That's what I'm going with.
Oh, all right. So the Undertaker GIF Comeback Player of the Year. We have our 3 nominees. Geno Smith, quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Christian McCaffrey, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. And here he comes again, Evan Ingram, tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Evan Ingram's getting nominated a lot in this episode. Dave, let's go back to your magical fingers here on the drums. Let's go. Oh, it's lovely. Vig, you suck at finger drums. The Undertaker GIF Comeback Player of the Year award goes to Geno Smith, quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, with 56% of the vote. And I know you're so David, you're upset. Are you upset because I stole your nominee, or because you disagree with the people at home?
I disagree with the people. It's not like he came back from some extreme trials and tribulations.
They wrote him off, Dave. He didn't write back.
He came back from sucking. I mean, Geno Smith was terrible early in his career. It's not like he came back.
The bench is a place.
Yeah, I don't know. And I have a feeling he's probably going to win Comeback Player of the Year too, but I think that we have to there's so many better options out there. I just don't understand the whole narrative with Geno. Like I said, it's not like he had this chip stacked against him or had some terrible injury or anything. He was just bad, and then he ended up in a really good situation. I don't think that makes him a comeback candidate.
Vig, Evan Ingram is now 0 for 3 so far on awards. How does that make you feel?
I mean, look.
All right, let's move on to our next award.
We'll give Evan Ingram the Leonardo DiCaprio award. How about that?
Yeah.
For most nominations without a win.
All right, moving on to our next award here. It is the, quote, Sorry Joe award for the player that made you say the most bad words this year. That's a little football guy's inside joke. If someone makes a mistake and maybe says a word they're not supposed to, it's Sorry Joe. We're calling this the non-injury bust award, okay? Because it's just not fair if a guy gets hurt. Like, that's just part of it. But when a player is just not very good, well, we're going to make fun of you on a show that not a lot of people are going to watch or listen to. So the Sorry Joe player that made you say the most bad words, non-injury bust award nominees are Russell Wilson, quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Najee Harris, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And James Robinson, running back of the New York Jets. Dave, give me the drums. And the winner for the Sorry Joe player that made you say the most bad words, non-injury bust award goes to Russell Wilson, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, with 68% of the vote. Najee Harris is another one that I think a lot of people drafted really high and probably upset a lot of fantasy managers. If they held on to him, he kind of came on a little bit stronger at the end of the season. James Robinson, I can see it where not a lot of people invested too much in him. It was Russell Wilson where a lot of people really expected this Denver Broncos offense to be very, very good. And it may not even just be that he was bad. It was the effect it had on all the players around him. Dave, I'm going to start with you first. Are you trusting this Denver Broncos offense? Let's say they get Sean Payton or some other, quote, offensive guru head coach that comes in that's experienced. Are you trusting Russell Wilson in this Denver Broncos offense next year?
Man, that's such a tough question, and I think this is something that's going to be discussed heavily all off season long because we've got a 80% of the season sample size where he looked absolutely terrible. Then we got these last 2 or 3 games where Russ Wilson kind of looked like the old Russ Wilson. So I think that he absolutely deserves to win this award because not only was he highly drafted, but Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Albert Okwuegbunam, so many other people were busts because of Russell Wilson's lack of ability this year. So it's a loaded question, and I don't think I have a strong take at this point. I think we got to see how the offseason shakes out. I mean, it's kind of uncharted territories. We've never seen a player like Russ Wilson go from potential MVP candidate to being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I don't know if that's sustainable or not. I don't know if his finger injury from last year is still lingering. This is something I'm going to be diving deep into this offseason, but I really don't have a strong take on the Broncos right now.
Vig, this award represents the player that made us say the most bad words. And I think in all the time that I've known you since 2008, I've maybe heard you say a bad word like 4 times in that span. So what is your favorite, let's call it G-rated bad word? Because earlier you said darn, and I was like it just catches me off guard. What is your favorite safe bad word to say?
And so some of the background is that, half of my time is spent as a pediatrician in hospital. So, in addition to taking care of adults, so I think the one that kids say that I like a lot because it's really adorable and they have no idea what they're doing is kids say fudge a lot. And I know they learned it from their parents.
Only they didn't say fudge.
The kids are saying fudge, and I know they're getting it from their parents. So it's like really adorable to hear this 4-year-old say, "What the fudge, mom?" So fudge is my favorite G-rated bad word.
That's fantastic. What I've been finding is a lot of fun is words in Spanish that sound bad, but they're not. Like I just learned a word, chucheria, which sounds like it would probably be bad, but it's not. It's just like it's a word that's used in Panama for like sweets and junk food and stuff like that. And so little boy was being told no more chucheria, and I was like, oh, she got mad at him. So
Could you could you imagine going to Cuba and somebody just like stubs their toe and they're like, "Oh, candy bar."
Junk food. Yeah, it's fake bad words are fun. We're gonna continue on here, Vig. That was just, you didn't fudge it up, so thank you, man. All right, next category here is the best draft day value. We've got our nominees for the player that was the best draft day value for you, and these are some very popular names. This was a close vote. Jamal Williams, running back of the Detroit Lions, Jerick McKinnon, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Vig, your nominee of Josh Jacobs for the Las Vegas Raiders. Dave, hit me with the drum roll. The winner for the best draft day value is Josh Jacobs, Las Vegas Raiders. Gentlemen, this is Josh Jacobs' second award that he is winning tonight, and he's basically becoming the Ted Lasso of this award show. Like, he is just going home with everything. Guys, Josh Jacobs, I you know what? I did very minimal research for this episode, so I don't even know what round he was being drafted in. Do any of you guys remember the latest that you saw Josh Jacobs going? Because I feel like
I was
everybody
getting him an underdog in the ninth and 10th
Yeah,
round.
that's what I'm saying. 9-10. First off, you said it was very close. The first time I even had the opportunity to nominate someone who I knew was going to win, I was so excited when I saw you guys said Jamal Williams, Jerick McKinnon. I'm like, Josh Jacobs is going to. It is not close. Josh Jacobs got 64% of the vote. And so I want the credit for actually.
In my head, it was closer.
Not at all close. But that was the thing. I nominated him because the guy was going in 8, 9, 10 rounds. I mean, 0 RB people, they were like able to pick him up in like the 7th and were touting him as like a great example of why you go 0 RB. And then he just absolutely like blew everyone away. Can't believe y'all went with Jerick McKinnon and Jamal Williams, to be honest.
Well, for many people, Vig, that's not even 0 RB. That was the running back dead zone, quote unquote. And it's not quite
true.
so dead anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a team this offseason that was at high stakes, relatively high stakes, $250 buy-in, and I felt terrible after the draft. And I shared a screenshot saying this is the worst team I've ever drafted because I went Josh Allen and Travis Kelce in the first 3 rounds, which you never want to do.
Nice.
But then my first running back that I drafted, round 9, Josh Jacobs. Wow. Guess who won that entire league?
Yep. Congratulations, Dave. All right, gentlemen, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4 more awards here to close out the night, and we're going to do our very best to keep this episode under an hour. It's kind of crazy. The episode with the least amount of actual analysis is going the longest. So let's jump into the biggest breakout award for the biggest breakout player that we saw in the 2022 fantasy season. And There are so many different players that I think you can make an argument for. This vote was a little bit closer, Vig. So let's take a look at the 3 nominees here. We've got Justin Fields, quarterback for the Chicago Bears, Ramondre Stevenson, running back for the New England Patriots. And Vig, you gave me some stupid chucheria answer where you put down 2 people. And so I just picked Tony Pollard for you for the Dallas Cowboys. So we got.
Who was
Justin
my other
Fields.
person again? Who was my other nominee? I don't even remember who I picked.
I
It was a
don't
joke,
know,
I'm sure.
man. Like it was. I think it was
Evan
Travis
Ingram.
Etienne. No, it was something.
Oh, it was.
some-
Yeah, it was something. I don't remember.
No, you tried to put Travis Etienne for Rookie of the Year. 'Cause
That's
he's
what I
actually-
did. Yeah.
He should be counted as a rookie. Shut up, man. So, biggest breakout of the year, the 3 nominees, Justin Fields, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard. Dave, drumroll. The biggest breakout goes to Justin Fields, quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Dave, I'm going to you first, as always, because, well, you are a resident Chicago Bears fan, and the talk has already started. The talk has already started about, is Justin Fields going to be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears? And we are setting the record straight on a lot of things here today, whether it's bad word, phrases, Latin, Vig's job, how we nominate things. Dave, is Justin Fields going to be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears next year?
Yes, I have a Bears insider that I reached out to and I said, please tell me they aren't really thinking about trading him. And they said, no, this is all media talk. There is no way they're trading Justin Fields. And I also just want to say, of all, like, you can steal the best nominations for every single category, but you couldn't let me have Justin Fields be the breakout player. Like, you couldn't let me take at least this one, the guy that I was touting all offseason. Come on, Alfredo.
I'm sorry. You come onto my show like I'm the Skip Bayless of football, guys. Like, it is about me. I'm going to say ridiculous things. I'm going to make it all about me. Vig, you struggled to even come up with a nominee for this, but the other 2 guys we got here, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, these are players that were essentially considered the RB2 on their team, and a lot of people had high hopes for them to break out. Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris is going to be a free agent, may not be returning to the New England Patriots. Tony Pollard, he's got Ezekiel Elliott there, who feels like has been playing for 18 years. Do you think that these guys can maintain this level of production that they had this year going into 2023?
I hate to go back to like one of our very first players we were talking about, but there is way too much that can change in the running back landscape between the draft and also all of these free agents and where they might go. And we've all seen this play out. We all have these predictions of who might stay, who might go somewhere, who might, whose option gets picked. We talk about all this and then we just find out that we had no idea and things change a lot. So I'm giving you a non-answer, which is I have zero idea. And plus, when it comes to Dallas Cowboys players, there's like a Jerry Jones effect, right? If Jerry Jones says they're going to be an RB1, they're going to be an RB1. And if Jerry Jones decides that Zeke's going to be the RB1, I can't explain it. He's the RB1. It's a Cowboys thing. And so it is just near impossible to predict. And I don't know that I want to, at least until I see where some of these like big name free agents end up.
I think something you said there, Vig, that really stands out to me is that the running back landscape is going to change a lot. And I think that for fantasy managers, whether that's in Dynasty or redraft going into next year, that running back landscape is going to be so totally different. At least we think, right? With free agency, with the draft, with just players dealing with injuries. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. Gentlemen, we're down to our final 3 awards here. And these are some of the biggest awards that affected fantasy football the absolute most and led a lot of fantasy managers to championships. So let's go to our best waiver wire ad of the year. Dave, I stole another one from you because my nominee was Jerick McKinnon of the Kansas City Chiefs, who you came on this show and touted Jerick McKinnon not only as a major waiver wire ad, but as a guy that you were willing to put in the RB1 category, RB1 conversation late in the year. So he is our first nominee for best waiver wire ad. Next, we've got Jamal Williams, running back of the Detroit Lions, and Evan Ingram, once again, he's on here, tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is Evan Ingram going to go 0 for 4? Let's find out next. Dave, give me the drum roll. And the award for best waiver wire ad goes to Jerick McKinnon, running back of the Kansas City Chiefs, with 55% of the vote. Dave, Jerick McKinnon was just phenomenal for fantasy managers late in the season. And it wasn't one of those things where you weren't sure whether or not you were starting him. I think a lot of people tried to make the case for Isaiah Pacheco, but Jerick McKinnon just kept doing it. Is this a guy that you think we're going to be able to trust going into next year?
No. not at all. He's 31 years old and he's a free agent. And no, I think that he's going to get replaced. I mean, very much so. Right place, right time. I think that he's going to remain hot through the fantasy playoff, or not. I'm sorry, through the NFL playoffs, playing with the Chiefs, because he does things that Isaiah Pacheco can't do as a pass protector, as a pass catcher, some nifty things around the goal line. So love him for the remainder of this season. He is going to probably help the Chiefs a lot on their push towards the Super Bowl. But next year, I'm not touching Jerick McKinnon.
So let me follow that question up with another question. This is a guy who maybe could have been a Rick Astley, RickRoll, whatever, never going to give you up award nominee, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Any shot that he can try to replicate the Jerick McKinnon production?
No.
You are just shaking your head in disgust.
What is the opposite of never going to give you up? Like, I have given you up. That's where CEH lands for me. Lost his job to a 31-year-old and a 7th round. He's done. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is toast. I'm sorry to say.
Vig, we have now reached the point where Evan Ingram has gone 0 for 4 on award nominations for the GMMYs. And I want to know how you feel deep inside right now as a Jaguars fan.
I feel fine. We always talk about this in Jacksonville.
All right, moving on to our next award here. Fantasy Rookie of the Year. Moving on to the Fantasy Rookie of the Year. There were so many good rookies in 2022 for the fantasy football landscape. And, this is crazy because if you play a lot of Dynasty and you were drafting in that rookie draft, a lot of people were saying, start getting rid of those picks and get ready for 2023. This is not going to be a good class. And this is one of those things that Vig and I assume Dave and Vig and I, we all kind of preach this, which is, you got to think in the now when you're dealing with rookie draft picks. Like, there is absolutely no reason to be expecting some sort of a big blow up in 2023 of rookies when you have no idea who is going to declare, who is going to get hurt, who's going to rise up, who's going to drop down in the college football ranks. And we've seen that year after year, but this rookie class was absolutely phenomenal. And I think you can make a case for 5 or 6 different players to be on this list, but we were able to boil down the nominees to 3 players, and this was actually a close race here. Vig, Fantasy Rookie of the Year nominees are Ken Walker III, running back for the Seattle Seahawks; Garrett Wilson, wide receiver for the New York Jets; and no, not Travis Etienne, Vignesh Doraiswamy. He is not a rookie. He's not Ben Simmons. You can't just Ben Simmons him.
I wanted to Ben Simmons him. He didn't play a single snap of football. He was basically a rookie.
Travis Etienne he's a rookie in my eyes. I'm with you, Vig.
You guys are disgusting.
I kind of wanted Trevor Lawrence almost to be a rookie. I feel like any Urban Meyer year was like it never happened. This was Trevor Lawrence's true rookie year. But all jokes aside, Travis Etienne, this was his rookie year for me. I'm sure he learned a lot being on the sidelines and being with the team. So you're right. He's not a real rookie. But come on. He gave us what we thought he would do last year, this year. And he gave me, like, Rookie of the Year performance. He gets the Ben Simmons Award. I'm announcing it now.
There you go. The Ben Simmons
Award. The only nominee is Travis Etienne, and he gets it.
I like that. We're going to so we got the Leonardo DiCaprio Award going to the player with the most nominations and no wins. And then we're going to have the Ben Simmons Award added next year for the 2nd or 3rd or 5th year player who's finally getting the Rookie of the Year. All right,
you got Trevor Lawrence winning the Easter Island Award as looking the most like an Easter Island statue. So there we got 3 Jaguars that are in there with
Dave
nominations and awards.
Love it. And so, Vic, your actual nominee, Dameon Pierce, running back of the Houston Texans. And I think we can all agree that a good honorable mention here could have been Chris Olave, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. And probably a few other guys too. But Dave, hit me with the drum roll. The winner of the Fantasy Rookie of the Year award goes to Ken Walker III, running back for the Seattle Seahawks. And listen, whether it was due to injury with Breece Hall or just the way the voters looked at it this year, Ken Walker has performed not just admirably, but just outstanding, I think, throughout the year. And this was a guy that a lot of people were worried about, saying he doesn't catch passes. Well, he's been able to do it just fine in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks team was much better than expected, and Ken Walker was able to go out there and produce. Dave, I've heard a lot of talk that Ken Walker should be potentially a top 6 or 8 running back next year, maybe even a guy that you're looking at tail end of the 1st round, early 2nd round. If you were just to do a mock draft right here at this moment, where would you be taking Ken Walker III?
Definitely not that high. And I know Ken Walker's your boy, Alfredo, but I think that Ken Walker was really pigeonholed into a really high volume role that was supposed to be split with Rashad Penny. I mean, we've seen this year after year, whether it was Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Pete Carroll really likes to have a stable of running backs, and we saw him running literally 5 running back sets this year. I mean, it was crazy. He still loves his running backs. It just so happened that Kenneth Walker was the best one available, but we've talked so much about how the running back landscape is going to get shaken up this year. Don't be shocked one bit if, I talked about earlier when I said, Josh Jacobs going to San Francisco or something like that. That probably isn't going to happen, but would it surprise you at all if Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, one of these big name free agents ends up playing a complementary role in Seattle with Ken Walker?
Vig, you put Dameon Pierce here, and something that Dave kind of alluded to here is that volume is so important when it comes to the running back position. Dameon Pierce was a guy who he got a lot of opportunity there in Houston, and I think a lot of people got really excited about what he did in the preseason. And he came out hot, and then as the year kind of went on, whether it be injury or just the Texans being really bad at football, things started to fizzle out for him. So Dameon Pierce, do you think he gets the same kind of volume next year, or is this one of those teams that you think that they almost have to bring in another running back to split the load with him and kind of cut some of that volume?
I know I said it's hard to predict the fantasy landscape, but I almost certainly feel like the Texans are not going to just run with Dameon Pierce alone. You got to imagine that they try to get someone else, maybe get an older player, maybe overpay for Jerick McKinnon. It's exactly where I was going, yeah. And really, I wanted to do Chris Olave, but I already nominated too many Jacksonville Jaguars players, and I felt like going Olave 2 would be just too much homerism.
It's weird because Olave doesn't play for the Jaguars.
I live in Columbus and work for Ohio State.
There we go.
That the other homerism.
There it is. All right, gentlemen, we have reached the point in the night here where we have just hit 1 hour on the recording, and we are to our final award of the night, and that is the 2022 Fantasy Football Most Valuable Player Award. This is the big one. We've got 3 nominees here, all players who were major part of championship rosters, all players who were drafted in the first round, all players who are either at the top of their position or near the very top of their position. Let's get started with the nominees. We've got Travis Kelce, tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. And Austin Eckler, running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, before we give out the winner here, guys, are there any more, let's call them honorable mentions, that you think could have been in the running here for the Fantasy Football MVP, or is it these 3 guys are bust at this point?
I think it's these 3 or bust because Jalen Hurts, was fantastic, but he missed the most pivotal point of the fantasy football season. Justin Fields, who was the, QB1 in points per game from week 5 through week 12, completely pooped his pants in the fantasy playoffs. So nice. We're looking at guys who maintained it through the fantasy playoffs. And even though Justin Jefferson had his dud in week 17, week 16 and week 15, he absolutely smashed. So really, I think it's these 3 against everybody else.
Vig, you put Austin Eckler here. Why Austin Eckler over a guy like Josh Jacobs, who's been nominated twice and won twice?
Well, I think, and here's the reason why I did it. I was between those 2, to be honest. And I went with Eckler because he wasn't drafted as early as Travis Kelce and Justin Jefferson were necessarily. I felt like as far as an MVP candidate, he was someone who gave you just incredible consistency all the way through the season. You can make an equal case for Josh Jacobs, who was drafted even later and was probably a better value. It just felt weird to call Josh Jacobs the MVP. And, it was a bit of a toss-up, and I just like Austin Eckler better. And I was really upset he wasn't nominated for anything. He's such a great part of the fantasy community. So that's the real reason I threw him in there, because let's be honest, it was always going to be not Austin Eckler. Now, I'm not revealing who won, but it was always going to be a Travis Kelce or a Justin Jefferson.
Austin Eckler's just happy to be here. That's the kind of guy he is. All right, Dave and Vig, can you give me a drum roll here for the final award of the night? The 2022 Fantasy Football MVP for the Pretend GMMY Awards goes to Travis Kelce, tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs, with 43% of the vote. And gentlemen, I think a lot of this just boils down to the fact that he was so much better than the next tight end. He gave you such an incredible positional advantage. And in certain leagues, you didn't even have to draft him in the first round. You were able to get him at that 1-2 turn in many leagues where, a lot of those home leagues, they still go really hard after running back in those first rounds, or maybe had people that thought he was falling off that age cliff. But Travis Kelce voted by the audience as the 2022 Fantasy Football MVP. Vig, give us something that we can tell the folks at home after a beautiful season with the Pretend GM.
Well, as we like to say in Jacksonville, I can't even say this because I know you're going to cut me off yet again. No, man, it was just it was a fun season, both in fantasy, but I obviously, dude, I'm just excited that the Jags are in the playoffs and playing a Saturday night primetime game. I really can't think about anything else. And so go Jags. Sorry, Chargers fans, but I really want to win.
Yeah, my Miami Dolphins are playing in a playoff game with Skylar Thompson probably starting, so I'm just going to be crying into my Dolphins jersey. But Dave Kluge and I are off to Las Vegas this weekend. We're going to be playing out our off season. We are going to the Football Guys corporate retreat. We hope to be bringing you all kinds of great content this offseason, whether it's Dynasty, NFL Draft, Best Ball, Redraft, a whole bunch of new and familiar names are going to be joining us. We've added already some great new staff members over here at Football Guys, and obviously I hope to see the return of Dave Kluge and Dr. Vig here on the show in some form of capacity. And for the very last time here on the 2022 fantasy football season, for myself, for Dave Kluge, and Dr. Vig, I want to thank you all so much for making this second season of the Pretend GM Fantasy Football Show so special. It's been an absolute honor. And as always, adios.